What's up, y'all? It's your boy Evan. Welcome to the Cartoon Block. Today we got my buddy Jason Brubaker, who's going to show you how to draw a Ninja Turtle from head to toe in an action pose in less than 15 minutes. Sit back and enjoy.
Thanks, Evan, for having me on Cartoon Block. Today I'm going to be drawing a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, and Donatello to be specific, because he's my favorite. So, with any of these drawings, we kind of just need to start out with some basic shapes. And since we know that turtles have shells, let's just kind of start trying to map out what a shell looks like. So we have this oval, and I'm going to have the front kind of flat. So it's kind of like a circle, a ball cut in half, And then I'm kind of putting in some front shell pieces, and like the front of their bodies is kind of like the shells almost form like the pec muscles, which is neat. So let's just keep going. I added the head. Now I'm trying to just figure out where that staff is going to go. I'm just putting a big old angular line. I think it's going to be behind him. So let's try to attach that back arm to the staff somehow, or the bow. What is it? The bow. And so, right now I'm kind of just guessing where things are going to be, but as we go, we kind of start figuring this stuff out. So this is going to be his arm in the front if this works. And so we'll just keep going light, just real light with a pencil. This is just a normal mechanical pencil with number 2 style lead, so it's just the average lead weight. Now I'm just pushing real lightly. I'm trying to map in these legs because it's kind of funny. There's this shell, and then you have this realistic anatomy sticking out of the side of the shell, and so it kind of is a strange combination, but it works really well. We'll put his little quick foot in there. Another quick foot. I love the turtle's hands and feet because they only have 2 fingers, and they're just really, it's almost like you put your hand inside a glove and you put 2 fingers in each glove. That's kind of how you can think of the hands and feet. I'm going to change this foot because I think it'll look a little bit more action-packed if a lot of the action lines are moving the same direction as his body. With his foot sticking forward, it kind of slows down the action, like he's coming to a stop. But this way, it kind of looks like he's in mid-leap. So here's his belt that goes across his shell. It's kind of like not a belt necessarily, just a piece of cloth. We'll kind of refine some of these fake pectoral muscles / shells. And now that I know that I'm going to put that staff, that bow, whatever it's called, behind him, I just erased it. Put in the little bandana thing. I'm probably calling everything the wrong thing, but that's okay. As long as it looks right. Put him some little eyes to kind of give myself an idea of which direction he's looking. I think his face needs to be a little bigger, so as you're drawing, I know Evan does this all the time, you just kind of gotta keep experimenting and massaging these drawings, and sometimes you gotta change the shape of things and move things another angle, and it's okay to erase. I mean, erasing is your best friend really with drawing. I mean, it's just as important as using the pencil to lay down lead. So let's refine this arm that's sticking up here now. So let's do some major foreshortening with this arm. And, okay, I guess I'll have to adjust this camera. Alright, so I'll just talk over this now and do this in fast forward. So with foreshortening, I like to just almost make it insanely bigger than you would ever imagine, and then try to connect the dots. So, you draw a really big hand, and then the head's way far back, and then just try to figure out how to connect those dots. And, the trick is just to make the muscles get bigger as they get closer to you. And it's like all this stuff, it just takes practice. So I'm just refining all this stuff more now. And as you can see, a lot of my lines, the thing I like about turtles is it's really nice to use angular lines. There was a couple of the artists that did really angular line turtles, and that's just kind of a natural style for me. So it really makes me gravitate to just trying all these muscles with real nice angular lines like this. I'm trying to figure out these leg muscles. And that foot was kind of big, so I'm going to make it a little smaller. There we go. Just got to keep cutting away at things, adding to it, taking it away, adding to it, taking it away. That second foot is kind of buried behind his leg, but as long as we can, get those shapes right, your brain will compensate for what's hidden, and it'll look right. Now, refining these muscles is kind of tricky on the legs because these knee pads kind of take up a lot of the space on the knees, and that, for me, the leg muscles, how they come to the knee, really defines how those legs look. And so when you have these knee pads and elbow pads, it kind of covers up a lot of your anatomy. But sometimes that's good because that way you don't have to have it all figured out as much. You can just hide it with a knee pad. And I think that was part of the design of these turtles, was just to hide problematic areas. So now I'm trying to figure out this hand that's in the foreground. Problem is I don't really know what it's doing. So I'm kind of just experimenting with the shapes of the knuckles and what position the hand is, and not really sure. Like, should he be? It's almost like he should be holding on to something, or maybe it just needs to be outstretched. So as you can see, I am just working it over and over, trying to figure out what that position is. And I eventually caved in and decided to go get a big eraser and just kind of start over on that hand, because it wasn't really looking good to me. So we'll get this thing right now. I know I want it to be foreshortened though, so let's see what we can do. And I'm thinking it just needs to be sticking out, like fingers outstretched instead of as if he's holding on to something. So let's see if we can figure that out. And again, these fingers are like you're sticking your hand into a two-fingered glove. So you're putting two fingers in each finger hole. And so they're kind of wide. They're like double wide fingers. And as you can see, I used kind of rectangle shapes, box shapes to kind of figure out what the angle of these fingers are. And I'll refine that later and erase it later. And I get frustrated with where I'm at, and so I move on to a different detail. Then I come back to things. And we're still just laying down all the ideas, We're not focusing on much detail yet until we get the structure right, because that structure is really what's important. If you can get that structure right without detail, then almost any kind of detail you put onto it will just add to that. But if you get that structure wrong under the detail, then you can have a lot of detail that will mask your flawed structure, but it will still feel wrong, The detail's neat, but that structure needs to be solid underneath the detail. Now I'm just kind of adding a little more line weight to some of these areas that I think are working. Now that I feel confident in the structure, I'm starting to to push some heavier lines into there. And there's a part here that I was having trouble with, which is the kind of armpit area, because it's between the shell. And I actually had to look at some reference to see what goes on between here and a turtle. And most of the reference was like, well, it's just kind of a meaty part. So I just decided to go with kind of a bunch of lines to indicate that there's just meat between the shell. It's not really necessarily defined by any muscles, in my drawing anyway. You could add some muscle type tissue under there if you wanted, but so as you can see, I'm happier now with that hand, and so I'm starting to fill it out a little bit more. And you can see the drawing itself is starting to take more shape as the line weights are increasing. I'm going over each part, trying to figure out exactly how the shapes are and how those muscles fold. I keep redoing these things because there's something not quite right in them, and all these muscles are tricky because every angle that it's turned, the muscles bulge in a different way. So what works with one leg drawing doesn't work with another pose. And I just completely erased that knee pad because I think that was giving me troubles. It was dictating too much where the leg muscles go, and I wanted the leg muscle to stand out on its own before I add that knee pad. So I think I'm pretty happy with that. We get that calf muscle in there, and again, I'm keeping everything really angular. These feet are just really fun to draw, just because they're so strange and two toes. It's really cool, and it's almost like the heel is a back toe almost, but I know it's not. But I'm thinking of almost like chicken feet, 2 toes in the front, but with 2 toes in the front and 1 in the back. Even though that's not how the turtle's feet are, but just keep continuing to refine this, all the different details now, adding a little bit more line weight into places, and it's kind of like the power of suggestion is really neat with drawings. Your brain can fill in a lot of these gaps for you when you're looking at art. Now that we have these fingers kind of the way we wanted, I erased those boxes, and you notice I didn't do that on everything, but just those fingers, because they were a little bit more problematic. And now I'm adding detail, and the thing I loved about the old Turtles drawings is they were always just had all these little cuts and bruises all over their body, and they just looked really tough because of it. And so I love drawing the turtles with all these little tiny cuts all over, because it just makes it look like they're right in the middle of intense action. So let's refine these eyes again, get some furrowed eyebrows in there. And while I'm working on these details, I just want you to know that I have a YouTube channel as well, where I post a lot of my work in progress on my comics, and I have a lot of long format interviews, over an hour long interviews with other comic artists. I also have a lot of tutorials with Photoshop, so definitely subscribe. The link is right next to us here. We're just adding more detail. And the final thing is, I think I just needed to make this arm gradually get a little fatter as it got towards you. So I think it looks a little better now. Okay. Well, thanks for watching, you guys. It was a pleasure to draw a Ninja Turtle with you, and I want to thank Evan for having me on Cartoon Block. See you guys.
And if you're still having a hard time coming up with your own superhero body, then click the link below in the description and get my free superhero mini course. Get started right now. Don't wait.